first things you want to have when you're doing silicone casting is the actual silicone. Now I use the Pinksil brand because it's cheap. It's not very viscous and it can get a lot of detail and you don't need to be massively experienced to use it. Next thing you want, red frat house party cups. They're cheap, they're disposable, and the silicone won't eat them. Make sure they're clean though. For Pinksil, we're talking about equal measures of each, and there's little ribs on the cup you can use to measure how much you need. It's easier to, say, do it by increments because silicone will just bond to itself, even if it's nearly completely dry. But you don't want to make too much because it's just waste. For a project like this, you don't need to use the pour-on silicone. There's actually a putty product which will actually do itself pretty well. Although I'm not entirely sure about how the details are going to come out with this, I may actually end up using the silicone pour-on stuff, but it might just help you conserve a little bit. Just like epoxy, or like a 2-part Bondo, you just mix it together, and just like that. Now with this you don't really have to worry about air bubbles, so it's a little bit better than the pour-on silicone. But if you got super intricate details, you're going to want to go with the pour-on silicone. But with this, you can test if it's going to get all the details by just pressing the part in and removing it, and it's getting in everywhere, so pretty good. Or you can just force it in by hand, preemptively, and then set it in the body. And set the hacksmith icon in the body. Like that. Now you gotta be quick with this stuff because it'll set up real fast on you. Leave those to set up overnight, and then we'll pour the resin. "24 hours later, and we have a little bit of the results are a little bit mixed. The smaller icon didn't exactly come out. There's not a lot of detail there, and it's missing the outer rim. The larger casting came out a little bit better, but still a little bit to be desired. I prepared this casting a while back with the pour-on silicone that was completely liquid, not a putty. It got all the detail, so I was correct about my assumption about the putty not getting all the detail, but the putty can be an open mold, while the pour-on kind, I have to have a stem and everything like that. It just doesn't have, it's way too squishy. It can't support resin itself, but the putty is actually quite solid. It's like almost like a rubber, really. Anyway, I'm going to try them both out. Originally, I was going to use this mold to cast aluminium positives. Basically make wax positives from this mold and then cast the wax positives in aluminium using investment casting. But I can't be bothered doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get resin and then I'm going to add aluminium powder to it. Takeout containers are pretty good. They give you a lot of surface area to mix all the additives into the resin. Like for the later ones, we're going to be using black pigment. Syringes aren't actually that bad measuring resin, but you have to use the disposable kind because, well, resin it's gonna set up. So we're gonna use 40 mils resin. And then 0.4 mils of catalyst, but I think I did pretty well in titration. I think. bolt and stir it all up. So that's going. Add a little bit of aluminium powder. With casting, even with resin, it's always good to go a little less than a little more, because a lot of the stuff will adhere to itself or fuse with itself. But rarely can you save it after you've added catalyst. And after saying that, I've made at least twice as much as I need to. So let's try one of the slightly larger casts, and let's see how this comes out. Okay. And not make a mess on the table. A little bit too much there. By the way, I didn't, but use a mold release. It's gonna be a pain in the ass getting these out. Okay, it's been 24 hours and we've got some results. They're a little bit varied. The larger putty casting, yeah, lost quite a lot of detail, and you can see there's missing sections to it. The smaller silicone putty casting is pretty well the same. The poured silicone mold actually got the best results and probably got the most recognizable icon there. I tried polishing up, and that's why there's red all over it, there's red polishing wax, to get the aluminium to shine through, but yeah, that didn't happen. Since the pour-on silicone mold got the best results, I've gone and bought more of that. Anyway, so I'm going to use the cups to measure equal parts of A and B. So we're going to need the full content of these cups to actually fully coat this casting. Now this casting I've turned down to diameter because it was originally just meant to be something I was going to cast completely in aluminium, but this is going to be the centerpiece to an aluminium bolt head. So needs to be a little smaller. Okay.